share a little bit with us about your journey with Alludo? I think you are one of our earliest adopters when Alludo was Chrome Warrior, and so we've had the opportunity to partner with you now for over 4 years. So maybe you could share with us a little bit of your history, what your role is at Oxnard.
All right. Yeah, I'm currently the ed tech coordinator in the Oxnard Union High School district. But back when I was a teacher in the Rio School district, I had gone to the Q conference and saw a session on gamifying PD uh, with something called Chrome Warrior. I had just gamified my classroom. I was teaching a middle school technology class and had dabbled in some gamification, but then I didn't really know what how I wanted to do it, and I ended up getting this idea to copy a story from a kung fu movie that I liked. So I gamified my class following this kung fu movie in these 36 chambers. So I had this great experience of gamification and saw many of the benefits and with the self-pacing and motivation with students. And so I was intrigued by the idea of taking those gamification elements and using them with professional development, because I had just been hired literally like the week before I went to Q as the tech TOSA in the Rio School District. So saw this Chrome Warrior game and was really intrigued by it and started having ideas of how I would sort of take my experience combined with what this district had done with Chrome Warrior, and went back to my team with our tech director and our superintendent and another TOSA, and sort of brainstormed some ideas of what it might look like and started building it out using Google Sheets and Google Forms and just Google Docs and stuff, and tried to kind of build a similar thing to Chrome Warrior ourselves. And initially, even launched the game just using people submitting things in Google Forms and us managing it all ourselves. And then about a month in, we realized how unmanageable that was, and reached out to Chrome Warrior and said, "Hey, we might want to use you. Here's what we're doing." And talking to Damon was like, "Well, that's what we do. we have that for you. We have that solution." So um, then we ran with our game, which was Rio Paddle, because we were Rio, which is river. We had a whole river theme and a lot of our things that our superintendent did. And so Rio Paddle was born, which we had the name before we knew what the acronym stood for, but it ended up being Personal and District Digital Learning Environment. And we launched it when teachers started back in school that first day where everyone gets together, and it was sort of rushed, and we had Wi-Fi issues and didn't get a whole lot of momentum at the time. We had some few folks that jumped on board right away and started playing and were earning points, and it was great. But it wasn't until our next district-wide PD day where we got to relaunch it with everyone, and sort of that helped me realize how important communicating the message and how important that launch is. So it was the first day back in January when we had that relaunch, and from there the game completely took off. And in those 5 or 6 months, the second part of the year is when we got a whole bunch of people on board, a whole bunch of people playing, people really enjoying the game, people that completed the entire 5 levels of the game in that short time. And we had incentives built in, and they earned their way to get to go to the Q conference that next year, which was really cool. And it was a first time for a lot of them to go, but first time for a lot of them doing a lot of things, which was a really cool part of gamification. It gets, people trying new things, and things are on their radar all of a sudden that they hadn't been exposed to before. So that was a big success in that Rio Paddle game.
That's great. And then at some point you transitioned from Rio to your role now at Oxnard.
I did. It was actually at the end of that year is when I um, took a job with the Oxnard Union High School District as the ed tech coordinator, and Rio Paddle lived on in Rio. But as I came over to my new district, I definitely had in the back of my mind that I wanted to get another game going. So um, in that first year, I had a group of tech coaches, teachers from every site that I worked with, and I made just sort of a mini version of a game for those tech coaches to play. Um, Road Trip was the name of the game because the incentive was to get them to go to Q. Um, and so they got that exposure to gamification. There was teachers in our district that had worked with gamification before that, um, but they kind of saw how Alludo worked, and saw some of the benefits of that. And from there, we got the approval from our district to build out a game for teachers. So we came up with Oxnard Union Express, kind of playing with the Oxnard Union and Union Station idea. So we have a train theme, but we built out a game with three main levels, and we have focus on digital tools. We at the time were a Microsoft district and sort of starting to transition to Google. So we have a section mission in the game focused on that. We have uh, PLN, getting teachers on Twitter and connecting with each other and sharing ideas. A coaching and collaboration mission. So getting people working together as well as attending trainings or giving trainings. Um, and then a pedagogy mission. So actually trying new stuff, things they're learning in the game, trying those and applying those in their classroom. And it sort of had the same experience of a not ideal launch. Kind of just had to get out there and go on campuses and talk to people and try and get them. Didn't get the full district wide message, so had to go out there and just sort of talk with teachers and get it going organically. Um, and kind of similar, somewhat slow start, but people definitely started to jump on board, and word spread, and people kind of saw our incentive structure here was so that when you completed the third level, because we weren't a one-to-one school at the time, was that it was a way to get a Chromebook card. We weren't one to one. We couldn't afford to purchase Chromebooks for everyone in the district at the time. So a way to sort of decide who was going to get the cards was you kind of earned your way through the game, and there was other incentives built in as well. But so a lot of people were very motivated by that and wanted to get their Chromebook cards. So we had people playing, and it was great. It brought people together from all across the district. I think that's one of the big benefits, is it's really got people sharing ideas with each other, whether it's through Twitter, which is, a big part of the game, but also just in person, and people meeting up. There's, a lot of the game builds on itself. So as you get higher up, you organize, meetups and brew queues and things like that. So people were starting to do that more and more. And, English teachers from one school connecting with English teachers from another school. So that collaboration has been a big part of the game. We have more and more teachers, not only attending conferences, local conferences, ed camps, things like that, because it's built in, or they're earning it as a reward. But even, more and more, we have our teachers presenting at these conferences, which is really cool. And sometimes it's initially for the points, but, then it becomes just kind of part of who they are as an educator. And as I mentioned before, a big part of the game is just getting exposure to new ideas. I have people all the time that tell me, I wouldn't have tried this thing, or I wouldn't have even known about this thing if it weren't for the game. But getting them to just, try new things is fun to watch them grow.
So, since you mentioned new things, this year has been filled with a lot of new things for educators, and I'd be interested in hearing a little bit more about as your district transitioned during the COVID situation from traditional professional learning and traditional instruction as a teacher. How was your Oxnard Union Express program able to support your teachers during that time?
Yeah, it definitely was a big help. I think on a number of fronts. One, so many teachers had experience with a lot of these digital tools and things that work so well for distance learning. Using Bear Deck and HyperDocs and all these different things that they could then apply to distance learning. Um, Also, the idea of uh, being sort of the student in the game, for these teachers, being the player in the game is sort of the student role. So they kind of had that experience that they could sort of uh, empathize with the students and sort of understand the learner's perspective. But I had a number of teachers that came to me and said, or tweeted out or emailed me or whatever, and said, because of OU Express, because of Alludo, I was prepared for this moment of distance learning, which was really cool to hear. Um, and then we ended up building out a distance learning mission in our game, which we put at the very first level when we have, sort of the onboarding activities. And we had a whole bunch of people that completed that. We got a whole bunch of people that had never played or maybe had signed in once a long time ago, but weren't really playing the game, that got in and completed that distance learning mission. And so that was really helpful too, and cool to get a bunch of new players on board.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I recall when you did your distance learning challenge, back to the incentives, and you organized around that challenge, I believe your number of participants from a percentage standpoint at one point were nearing 90% or so of the teachers in the district were leveraging that PD at some point in time during that month promotion. So that was a great job. So independent of the distance learning piece, prior to the focus on distance learning, you had a vision for student learning. And from what I understand, many of your teachers that were using Oxnard Express, Alludo as a platform liked it and enjoyed it and said, this might be something that I would like to use in my classroom as well. So I believe you had both a desire from the teacher side to maybe look at the student aspect of using the platform, as well as a vision of some other learning from your part. So maybe you could share with us, what is that vision? What does that look like for next year with Alludo and your students?
Yeah, from the beginning, that was one of the big questions I'd get from people that were really enjoying playing the game was, I want this for my class. I want this for my students, because they could envision how it would work so perfectly in their class, to focus on maybe just some aspect of their class, homework or behavior or whatever, or maybe even running their entire class. So that's been a request from teachers for a long time. We are moving to do our digital citizenship with students using Alludo. We actually got it last year, and we were going to roll it out later in the year, but then with the whole distance learning, we ended up moving a different direction. But we had um, schools that were using it this last year. One of our schools did a freshman house game, and then one of our smaller comprehensive high schools had three different games, one for each of their academies. So they have academy games. Next year, we're moving towards a district-wide digital citizenship game, where we're going to have activities for students, not only in digital citizenship, but focused on some of the digital tools that we have to help them learn how to use those, as well as just kind of life skills with FAFSA and SATs and all that kind of stuff. So um, since we're going to be starting the school year in some form of distance learning or hybrid model, it's been a big request from teachers as well to have how to be successful in distance learning for students. So we're going to have that as a mission in the game as well. We also have a group of teachers, I think from every one of our high schools now represented, that are really concerned about our incoming freshmen. You know, they're going to be possibly never even stepped foot on campus before and be a freshman in high school all of a sudden and taking these, you know, distance learning classes. So we have a group of teachers that are building a game specifically for our freshmen to help them be successful and sort of get a very different, but get a high school experience and introduction to high school and introduction to their specific school. So there's going to be freshman games at each of our high schools. We also have another school that's adding a school-wide game, and it's just a bunch of activities to sort of, you know, help build community and also, you know, things they've always wanted students to know, like where the College and Career Center is, or, you know, some of those resources that are available to them. You know, go take a selfie with the person that works in the College and Career Center or whatever. And then they're going to incentivize it with, you know, just kind of fun things and like tickets to dances and a lot of those, you know, school related activities. So I'm really excited about those. I'm also just starting working with one teacher who's doing a summer school algebra class, but I'm really excited about the idea of actually running an entire course using Alludo with students. I think that, you know, doing that can really take care of a lot of those, you know, grading issues that we have. And, you know, one teacher has 40% of their grade from homework and another teacher doesn't give homework and all that kind of stuff. You know, it can be really mastery based. I like the self-paced aspect of it. It can be really transparent so students can see exactly what is being asked of them, and all of those, like, you know, major activities would be in Alludo. You'd still manage your class through Google Classroom or whatever. But it would be, you know, a lot more consistent from class to class if you have teachers using that same game. So we're sort of experimenting with that right now with an algebra class this summer. I'm also looking to build, we're adding a brand new data science course. And so I'm looking to start that course from the beginning using Alludo and building all of the activities and projects and all that into the game. So I think that's really exciting. Also, there'd be a lot of choice built into it and sort of self-differentiated from the student end, which is cool.
Wow, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
You guys are definitely leading the way when it comes to the different offerings and opportunities that you have for your students. I for one am just really excited to hear the feedback, because you have so many different channels and different paths that you're taking with the platform. It'll be exciting just to hear what's working well, what do the students gravitate towards, and what have you. And you mentioned it right at the end, and I'm just curious your opinion on it. Being an educator expert, is choice and differentiation for students can sometimes be challenging with assessment and standard testing and what have you. Um, how do you see that changing potentially in the future, or what does the landscape look like?
Um, I want to add one thing because I'll be in trouble if I forgot. There's also one other game that's going on right now this summer, which was built by our ELD teachers specifically for our English learner students, and it's a bunch of, you know, extra support and resources for them. So that's also very exciting. Yes, student choice as well as teacher choice. You know, just choice in general is huge. You know, it's huge with buy-in. You know, there's such a big difference when you're told to do this one thing versus, you know, if you just have two choices, when you get to choose and, you know, you have that much more interest in buy-in. I think that's huge. I think that's needs to be more and more a part of what we offer our students, you know, in school, and giving them choice in what they're learning and what problems they're solving or researching. And the same goes for, you know, with our teachers, giving them choice, and not that you must go to this PD and, you know, sit in this room for an hour. But, you know, what do you want to use? What do you want to learn about that you're going to use with your students in your class? yeah, it definitely goes a long way with happiness and interest and then performance.
Nice. Thank you. Well, thanks for your time today.